Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Enjoy today's Genesis of Lands. Watch, listen, and learn. And don't forget to subscribe. Ciao, ciao.
There's a city in Nepal where time carved itself into wood, where every door tells a story, every window whispers a prayer, where pagodas rise like prayers frozen in timber and stone, where 108 feet of red brick stand against earthquakes, wars, and centuries as if daring the world to forget. This is Bhaktapur, the city of devotees, a medieval kingdom that refused to become a ruin, a living museum where grandmothers still make pottery the way their ancestors did 800 years ago, where stone guardians watch over temples built by kings who believed art could defeat death. But here's what they don't tell you. This city wasn't preserved in a museum case. It survived a dynasty that tore itself apart. It endured conquest by a warrior king who unified Nepal with blood and strategy. And in 2015, when the earth shook with a fury that leveled nations, Bhaktapur's tallest temple didn't fall. It swayed, cracked, but it stood. Was Bhaktapur built to last? Or was it built by people who refused to disappear? The 9th century. The Kathmandu Valley. Before there was Nepal as we know it, there was a confederation called Nepal Mandala. A patchwork of kingdoms carved between the Himalayas and the lowland jungles. The ancient trade route between India and Tibet ran straight through it. Merchants, pilgrims, warriors, everyone passed through the valley. And in the eastern part of that valley, a settlement began to grow. The Newars, an indigenous people with their own language, their own script, their own gods, built villages of red brick and carved wood. They were farmers, potters, artisans, masters of craft who believed that beauty was a form of worship. They called their town different names over the centuries. Kolpa, Badgan. But the name that stuck was Bhaktapur, the city of devotees. Around 1200, a wrestler named Ari Deva came to power. He was engaged in a wrestling match when news arrived that his first son had been born. In that moment, standing victorious in the ring, he made a decision. From that day forward, every ruler in his family would carry the suffix Malla, wrestler, a name that would define a dynasty. Ari Deva's grandson, Ananda Malla, is credited with officially founding Bhaktapur as a city. He grew the population to 12,000 households. He turned a collection of villages into a royal capital. And for the next 600 years, the Malla dynasty would rule the Kathmandu Valley, presiding over one of the most sophisticated urban civilizations in the Himalayan foothills. But first, they had to survive destruction. Sultan Shamsuddin Ilyas of Bengal invaded the Kathmandu Valley. His army swept through like a storm. Hindu temples burned. Buddhist monasteries were plundered. Entire towns were reduced to ash. The valley fell into chaos. Rival rulers fought each other for scraps of power. The Malla dynasty seemed on the verge of collapse. And then came Jayasthiti Malla, a man whose origins remain mysterious. Some say he came from the Tirhut region near the Indian border. Others claim he was an outsider with no clear royal lineage. But what no one disputes is his ambition. Through a combination of marriage, military might, and political genius, he subdued rival rulers, unified the valley, and seized the throne in 1382. For the next 13 years he rebuilt Nepal Mandala. He created the first written legal code in Nepalese history, the Manabnyaya Sastra. He organized society into caste groups based on profession. He promoted art, literature, and religious unity. He turned Bhaktapur into the royal capital and the heart of Nepalese culture. Jayasthiti Malla understood something profound. A kingdom built only on swords will fall when the swords break. But a kingdom built on culture, on craft, on devotion to beauty, that kingdom becomes immortal. His grandson, Yaksha Malla, took that vision and expanded it beyond imagination. From 1428 to 1482, he ruled for 53 years. He extended the Malla domain from the high Himalayan passes of Tibet to the dense jungles of the southern lowlands. Over 20,000 square kilometers. An empire carved between two of the world's greatest mountain ranges. He fortified Bhaktapur with massive walls. He commissioned the oldest section of the royal palace, the Mul Chowk, in 1455. He built Dattatreya Temple in 1427, still standing today. Under his reign, Bhaktapur wasn't just a capital. It was a statement. A declaration that the Newars would not be erased. That their art, their faith, their language would endure. But empires built by one man rarely survive his death. In 1482, Yaksha Malla died. And his 6 sons, instead of ruling together as their grandfather had wished, tore the kingdom apart. Ratna Malla seized Kathmandu in 1484 and ruled there alone. Raya Malla, the eldest, took Bhaktapur with the other brothers. Another son claimed Patan. The unified valley shattered into three rival kingdoms: Bhaktapur, Kathmandu, Patan. Brothers turned enemies. For the next 300 years they competed not just in war but in art, in architecture, in who could build the tallest temple, the most intricate palace, the most breathtaking square. The rivalry was brutal, but it was also glorious, because when kings compete through beauty, the people win. The most remarkable of Bhaktapur's kings was Bhupatindra Malla. He ruled from 1696 to 1722, a deeply religious man, an art lover, a patron who believed that every building was a prayer made solid. And his reign gave Bhaktapur its two most iconic structures. In 1702 he commissioned the Nyatapala temple, the tallest pagoda in Nepal, 5 tiers rising 108 feet into the sky. Built in just 6 months, from December 1701 to July 1702. The speed was miraculous, but the craftsmanship was divine. Carved wooden struts, brick walls that taper toward the heavens, a 5-level plinth with stone guardians at each level, wrestlers at the base, 10 times stronger than an ordinary man, elephants above them, 10 times stronger than the wrestlers, lions, griffins, and at the top, the goddess city Lakshmi, the most powerful of all. The public is never allowed inside. The deity housed within is so powerful, so tantric, that even her name is kept secret. The gates open only once a year, but the temple itself is enough. It dominates Bhaktapur's skyline, a declaration that faith can rise higher than fear. Bhupatindra Malla also built the 55-window palace. 55 intricately carved wooden windows facing the Durbar Square, each one different, each one a masterpiece. He erected a golden gate that still glows in the afternoon sun. He placed his own statue on a stone pillar in the square, hands folded in prayer, watching over his city even in death. When he died in 1722, his son Ranjit Malla became the last king of Bhaktapur, a man who loved art and literature as much as his father. But the world was changing, and the 3 Malla kingdoms, weakened by centuries of infighting, were about to face their greatest threat. A warrior king named Prithvi Narayan Shah, ruler of the small hill state of Gorkha, had spent 27 years planning the conquest of the Kathmandu Valley. He was patient, strategic, ruthless. He played the 3 Malla kings against each other. He waited for them to exhaust themselves in petty wars. And then, during the festival of Indra Jatra, when the people of Kathmandu were drunk and celebrating, he struck. Kathmandu fell first. King Jaya Prakash Malla fled to Patan. When Patan fell weeks later, both he and Tej Narsingh Malla, the king of Patan, fled to Bhaktapur. On November 25, 1769, Prithvi Narayan Shah's Gorkhali forces surrounded the city. Ranjit Malla, the last Malla king, had a choice: fight and watch his city burn, or surrender and preserve what his ancestors had built. He chose survival. He negotiated terms, and Bhaktapur became part of a unified Nepal. The Malla dynasty, which had ruled for nearly 600 years, came to an end. But unlike the kings of Kathmandu and Patan, who were killed or exiled, Ranjit Malla was treated with respect. Some say it was because he was an intimate friend of Prithvi Narayan Shah. Others believe it was because the Gorkhali king understood what Bhaktapur represented. Destroying it would be destroying the soul of Nepal itself. The Malla descendants scattered across Nepal. Many changed their surnames to Pradhananga or Rajalwat to avoid persecution. But in Bhaktapur they remained. Every year, during major festivals, the descendants of the Malla kings gather inside the Talaju Bhavani temple to receive taika from the royal priest. They honor their ancestors. They preserve the traditions. And they remember that once their family ruled not through conquest, but through devotion to beauty. For centuries, Bhaktapur remained frozen in time. While Kathmandu modernized and sprawled, Bhaktapur held on to its medieval character. The narrow alleyways, the red brick courtyards, the pagoda temples, the pottery squares where Newar artisans still shaped clay on wooden wheels, just as their ancestors had for 800 years. The city became a living museum, but not a dead one. People still lived in the old houses, still worshipped in the temples, still carried on the festivals. And then, on April 25, 2015, the earth beneath Nepal cracked open. A 7.8 magnitude earthquake. The epicenter in Gorkha, 80 kilometers northwest of Kathmandu. The ground shook for 50 seconds. Buildings that had stood for centuries collapsed in an instant. Across the Kathmandu Valley, 38 heritage structures completely collapsed. 157 were partially damaged. Nearly 9,000 people died. Entire villages vanished. In Bhaktapur, the damage was devastating. The Vatsala Durga temple, built in 1672, was reduced to rubble. The Fasadega temple crumbled. Cracks appeared in the royal palace. Parts of Durbar Square fell. Homes collapsed. People died. But the Nyatapala temple, the tallest structure in the valley, the temple that had stood for 313 years, did not fall. It swayed. The uppermost story cracked. But the foundation held. The 5-level plinth absorbed the seismic energy. The timber frame flexed. The massive plinth redistributed the shear forces. And when the shaking stopped, the temple was still standing. It had survived the 1934 earthquake, the 1988 earthquake, and now the 2015 earthquake. 4 major earthquakes, and it refused to fall. In the aftermath, the Nepalese government took charge of rebuilding. Months passed. Little progress was made. Bureaucracy, corruption, indifference. The people of Bhaktapur watched their heritage crumble while politicians argued over budgets. And then they decided they had enough. The residents of Bhaktapur, predominantly Newars, took over. They formed committees. They hired local bricklayers who understood ancient building techniques. They brought in artisans trained in traditional wood carving. They salvaged materials from the rubble and began rebuilding, temple by temple, square by square. They refused foreign donations when they came with strings attached. They used entrance fees from tourists, local donations, their own labor. By 2018, many of the temples had been completely rebuilt. By 2021, the Vatsala Durga temple stood again. Bhaktapur showed the world what local communities can accomplish when they take their heritage into their own hands. Today, Bhaktapur remains a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Tourists walk through Durbar Square, marveling at the 55-window palace. They climb the steep stairs of Tamati Square to stand before the Nyatapala temple. They wander through Pottery Square, watching Newar potters shape clay with hands that remember centuries. But Bhaktapur is more than a tourist attraction. It's a living city. Over 80,000 people still call it home. They celebrate Biscuit Jatra, the New Year festival started by a Malla king in the 17th century. They eat Juju Dao, the famous sweet yogurt of Bhaktapur, made in clay pots using recipes passed down for generations. They maintain the temples. They preserve the language. They honor the past while living in the present. From a wrestling match that named a dynasty to a unified valley to a kingdom torn apart by rivalry to conquest by a warrior king to an earthquake that tried to erase it all, Bhaktapur is proof that some places refuse to disappear. That devotion, when carved into wood and stone, becomes immortal. The Malla kings understood something we often forget. That the greatest monuments aren't built to glorify rulers. They're built to glorify the divine. That every carved window, every pagoda roof, every stone guardian is a prayer. And prayers, once spoken into wood and brick, echo forever. So here's the question. If your city was tested by time, by war, by the earth itself, what would remain? Would your buildings stand? Or would they fall? And if they fell, would your people rebuild them? Or would they move on? The people of Bhaktapur chose to rebuild, to restore, to remember. Because forgetting is the only true death. And as long as the Nyatapala temple stands, as long as the potters shape clay, as long as the festivals continue, Bhaktapur will never die. Bhaktapur, the city of devotees, where 108 feet of faith defied the earth, where wood became prayer, where a dynasty of wrestlers built beauty that no conqueror could destroy, where the past is not a museum, it's home.